friends, and welcome to the Washington State Scholastic Esports Association broadcast of League of Legends. We have somehow made it all the way to week 7 of competition, and we are facing down a matchup between Lake Stevens High School and Southridge High School. We got an exciting matchup tonight, man, for sure. This is top of the standings. Lake Stevens High School, undefeated 6-0 right now. Southridge High School trailing them at just 5-1, looking to tie up the very top of the bracket here and bring us to some playoffs and some crazy scenarios for seeding.
Yeah, and it being the last week, that seeding could be really important if Southridge takes the victory. Obviously, Lake Stevens, though, you know they want to cap off that undefeated season. Yeah, a meteoric rise. It feels like every time we check in on Apple Cuckoo, they're a higher rank than before. Now Diamond 2, but we saw last time, didn't really behoove them too much. They lost a lot of 1v1s. As we are going to get started into the draft here in Yarko. I wonder what we're going to see taken away. This is no surprise that Ash getting off.
Yeah, you want to knock out as many AD carries as possible. You do not want to give one of these high prio champions over to someone like Apple Cuckoo there. And honestly, the fact that Lake Stevens is on blue side is probably going to help them quite a bit because you could ban 3 and you can grab whatever is left over. Maybe high prio on something like a Jinx, a relatively safe champion with good range, could be the way that you look to angle yourself for the late game. Just scale, make sure you don't get dominated early. And Southridge High School may be pushed down through these other lanes.
Yeah, there is one problem with picking Jinx, and that the fact that obviously you have no escape. Now, while she is one of the strongest AD carries, means you're going to have to pair up a very safe support like a Thresh to be able to get her out of bad situations, which we just see getting taken off the board. But also means that Apple Cuckoo would have to rely on somebody other than themselves. We're going to see this Warwick get first pick over here, and I think that's a pretty solid pickup here for the side of Lake Stevens.
And I think this is probably going to be a Warwick top 4 budget pro. We've seen this jammed before, and I imagine that Lightning could just strike twice. I think that this is a really solid pick. Great healing. It's very difficult, especially for inexperienced players, to really get a grasp on whether or not you can all in this champion because, boom, all of a sudden he's doubled his health, and you are looking down the barrel with a very rabid dog. Meanwhile, for Southridge High School, instead of prioritizing Apple Cuckoo, as we seem to be prioritizing on the broadcast, we got to look for these other lanes, man. We got a Yone and a Wukong selected so far, and we got Knockup City set up.
Yo, Southridge is ready to fight. They do not care. They've got a nice little team fight thing going on. We're going to see the Malphite come out in response, so we're going to have a pretty good time against the Yone and the Wukong, and we're also going to see Aphelios get picked up here. Should be going over to Fumosity, who themselves is having quite a good season.
Yeah, definitely the case. It takes a lot of confidence to jam something like the Aphelios. And I'll be honest here, I don't think that Southridge High School has experienced very many Aphelioses within WSSEA. This is one of those champions that's kind of in that upper echelon of difficulty. And when you're up against people who are coming from all walks of life, all levels of play, having someone jam an Aphelios really is a statement that this is Lake Stevens throwing down the gauntlet saying, hey, we deserve to be at the top of the standings. Look at the champions we're piloting, the Wombo combo power as well. With that Malphite coming through, juking me in the draft a little bit. I was saying that was going to be a Warwick top, but it looks like it's going to be a Malphite up there instead.
Yeah, and one thing that we have to mention about Fumosity is, we sing the praises of Apple Cuckoo. Fumosity is Platinum 1 54 LP right now. Is certainly close to getting to Diamond themselves. So this might be the most evenly matched AD carry matchup that we are going to see. And we already see one get picked up on one side. So Apple Cuckoo, they're going to have a couple of things taken away. We see that Misfortune getting off the board. I like them focusing down the Southridge AD carry. Make sure that your AD carry is able to get priority on what they want to pick. The problem is, I didn't really touch upon that Mordekaiser pick. Going to make life really hard for the Aphelios. This entire team is basically a kill the Aphelios comp.
Yep, do you have great dive potential with the Wukong if you're mispositioned? Mordekaiser sending you to the death realm. Yone is able to dash straight through the entire team to get to you. And this Heimerdinger is going to zone you out during the laning phase most likely. But here's the thing, right? While you are an Aphelios, you also don't really have much in the way of escape, kind of like with the Jinx we were talking about before. You also got a Malphite and Warwick on your team. So if you are in want of a front line, so far Lake Stevens High School is drafting in such a way to really build this big death ball that will be able to protect the puppy, as it were. Now, though, they are facing off against the Varus, locked in by Southridge.
Yeah, and that Varus pickup is pretty nice. They're lacking a little bit of CC that can be engaged from a range, right? Mordekaiser with a claw is pretty much, it's that, and Yone ultimate, which are notoriously hard to hit. Obviously, Wukong ultimate has a nice bit of CC, but the Varus ultimate from downtown You know, that extra range going to go a very long way. We saw that Vex get picked up here from Macho Waffles. There's not too many dashes going on. I don't know if Wukong clone is considered a dash because he does kind of dash forward a little bit. I know his Q is considered a dash. So that'll, or is it his E? It's one of them. Hey, he's got a dash in his kit. You know, so you're going to get some value out of the Vex here with that and the Yone. And they're going to follow it up with Sona, which honestly is the perfect end to that Wombo combo. Now you've got a Malphite Sona combination. Very potent.
Yeah, I'm loving the Sona, actually. And I'll be honest, I don't think that Morgana is always the best pick into a champion like this. Yes, if you land the Dark Binding, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Sona is one of the squishiest champions in the game. But just got to dodge that one skill. And Sona's kind of home free. They're going to be able to poke a little bit, and they are certainly going to outscale much of what Southridge is bringing to the table. And I think that this direction towards the late game makes a lot of sense, you know? In the past, we've seen Southridge falter here and there a little bit in their attempts to just dominate the early game. And if you play a little bit too much into Lake Stevens' hands and you give up a little too much gold, I think that the team fight, the power of Lake Stevens to dictate the pace of the game really cannot be ignored. Hello, friends, and a welcome back to the last week of the regular WSSEA season. Lake Stevens High School versus Southridge High School about to get underway. We are opening up onto the Rift, and we see both of these teams assemble their forces, ready to duke it out.
Yep, and I wonder if we're going to see any invades. You know, you and I sometimes see invades, sometimes don't. We see some pings going down already. When you get a Morgana, you can certainly just go for it, right? Now,
yep.
And I think they have the better level 1 too, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, as much as I love Sona, nobody loves Sona's level 1. Sometimes you get a little bit of poke down, but the fact that unlike a lot of these champions that have these passive stacks, you don't start with an empowered ability or auto attack, kind of means that you're sitting and you're really just waiting to see what Southridge High School is going to do. Lake Stevens, with a pretty sober approach to the beginning of this game, we got a few people stacking up. We got the Malphite on point topside as well to ensure that they are moving through that direction. But Southridge, I don't really know if they're actually going to go for a late invade. It looks like they may actually be expecting Lake Stevens to walk in themselves.
Yeah, they're just out here dancing. Everything's all good, you know. But now we're going to see this Wukong start on the bottom side, which means we could see action up on the top side. Both junglers really starting on the bottom side. And, you know, a lot of this has to do with, are they going to be able to get Newbie Dare Boy ahead of this Malphite, right? Well, Malphite's going to have his ultimate. You know, if you trade that off with, okay, our Mordekaiser's really strong, that's a pretty good trade. I take that almost every day.
Dude, I was living a fever dream the other day. I was casting Malphite versus Mordekaiser, and the Malphite was up like 30, 40 CS or something crazy like that. I was massively confused about the fact that this champion was able to get that level of domination versus the man of metal. But, you know, sometimes a rock is just going to be able to beat a, you know, harder rock. I think that's what chemically metal is.
Well, the problem is, if you know your typings, steel is super effective against rock.
Oh, you're right. Yes,
that is a big problem here. So,
but that's only steel. You know, Newbie Dare Boy is playing Mordekaiser, and I think he says iron stands eternal. And you know, iron isn't necessarily steel. Steel is like iron with a bunch of other stuff in it. So
we're going with steel here. I mean, you know, Mordekaiser is called the man of metal for a reason.
Yeah, that is true. But I'm just saying, I think that like the typology of metal is such that perhaps, you know, Lake Stevens' top laner is going to have a chance here. Let's look at the rest of the map, though, really quick. We are getting the Warwick and Wukong on the same side right now, just clearing on up, maybe looking to make a play up against these relatively immobile champions on the top side of the map. This early on, there's no real means of escape for either of them besides the flash, and it's just going to be a matter of how these waves are going to push into one another because of that. Right now, Newbie Dare Boy is trying to get this crashed in. Budget Pro doing a great job, though, holding this cannon wave in such a place that the Mordekaiser feels a little bit exposed.
Yeah, but he's going to continue to shove this in. No threat right now from Freedom Fighter because it looks like these junglers have just opted into full clearing, trying to hit level 6 as soon as possible. That's when their champions make the most impact, so not really too much of a surprise there. One thing that I thought was a surprise is that Apple Cuckoo hit level 2 first, but Buman was still level 1 for a little bit, which meant they couldn't aggress the way they really wanted to down there, so cutting themselves off from EXP, but Budget Pro...
Yeah, big play on the top side of the map. Newbie Dare Boy is going to get the shield up, and Malphite is struggling to put in that last little bit of damage. Ooh. Warwick is going to hand off the aggro, but it's too late. First blood over to Southridge, although it is traded back.
Right place, right time there from Freedom Fighter. Almost continued the full clear, but goes up, picks up the kill. Yeah, your top laner gets first blooded, but able to get something back, it's not the end of the world.
And I've talked about this a few times. I like when junglers get the first few kills because it means that you're bringing gold value to these lanes. And beyond that, because of the control you have early, you could set up for some bigger invades once you cash out that kill. And I think that because that Lake Stevens High School could just look to make a mark on the map with a bit of a tempo advantage.
Yeah, and more experience there from Freedom Fighter is so big. Level 4 to the level 3 of Pink Nightmares. And we talked about how the big point of this game is when these junglers hit level 6, and obviously if you hit level 6 before the other jungler, you're going to have a little bit more of an impact, or at least a bigger window to make a large impact.
Definitely the case, yeah. And, we've been focused on this bot lane matchup quite a bit, as it is Fumosity versus Apple Cuckoo. And frankly, I hope that we see the junglers do kind of the same here. I know that with the Sona, it's a little bit difficult for Fumosity to push through lethal damage, even with the assistance of a Warwick. But at the same time, it isn't like Buman and Apple Cuckoo are doing a great job actually whittling these champions down. We're seeing a very good avoidance of the Dark Bindings by Game and Printa. Fumosity's staying at full health. And honestly, because of the fact that we're seeing a cold start of Apple Cuckoo, this is the time for Freedom Fighter to strike, as we do see them venture down to the bot side for a little bit of a play.
Yeah, and to see if they're going to be able to do anything is just not all too much. We saw Freedom Fighter get in there for a little bit, but it's just going to go back to farming, put a little bit of pressure down. But, you're going to see on the other side, Apple Cuckoo and Buman going to stand their ground here. Even though they know that Warwick could be in the area, I like the confidence coming out from them.
I like the fact that Game and Prince is like, hey, I'm dodging out of the way. Fumosity, are you going to do the same? And no, the Aphelios is right at the Q end. The good news is that because Aphelios Sona is able to sit so far back, even when Buman does walk up to poke, it isn't like this is going to be damning for this team. Lake Stevens is just able to absorb that little bit of pressure. And the Sona, being at such high mana right now, is actually able to sustain quite nicely. So with that in mind, things looking pretty sleepy on the side of the map.
Yeah, it's a little resident sleeper here, but you can see Gaming Princess starting to take more damage, and the more you can kind of burn through Sona's mana pool, the better. The only problem is Buman is not winning that race. But we do see Warwick having to commit to the bot side, spending more time down there means that Budget Pro is still stuck under turret here, is carving out a nice CS for himself, only down a couple, which is pretty good, but not a lot of health, and that Newbie Dare Boy could just drop his ultimate at any time.
All right. Good bush control, by the way, for the Morgana. Yes, as you're saying, it's not really a race that Buman is winning in terms of just getting these champions low, especially given how much mana that they're burning through. But the fact of the matter is, Southridge High School does kind of have first mover advantage into stuff like this newly spawned dragon. And so I want to keep an eye on this lane for more reasons than just the fact that we have these two standout players facing off against one another. As for the time being, I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen Pink Nightmares show on the map a whole lot. Same thing for Freedom Fighter. They are mostly just power farming, looking to really hit the power spikes before they go for something like either this dragon or the Rift Jarl that spawns up in about a minute.
Yeah, I mean, when you play champions like Wukong and Warwick, you do have options, right? Like, you can choose the gank depending on the scenarios. The problem is the CC is not too strong for either side. You could have tried to make something happen in the bottom lane, but Fumosity and Gaming Printa have been pushed in for a large majority of this time, so not much that Pink Nightmares would be able to do. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, they don't have enough CC to really get Freedom Fighter in there, so both junglers just electing to farm it out to level 6. I think that's the right move, and we're going to see them come in a collision course on the bottom side very soon. They're both about to hit those marks. That dragon is up, just a matter of time, Yarko, before one of these teams decide they want to fight.
Certainly the case, and I like the fact that Budget Pro has adapted a little bit, respecting Newbie Dare Boy quite a bit now on this Mordekaiser, knowing that if this Malphite gets whittled low, that they are going to have to experience a little bit of time in the Death Realm. Therefore, they're just going to absorb pressure near that tower, and Malphite always is going to get generally a lot of value from the fact that they're able to group up and just press their R button. And so as long as you're staying relatively within spitting distance of Newbie Dare Boy's farm, I think that they're doing all that they need to really stabilize this game. And therefore, the 200-300 gold lead on Southridge's side isn't something that I'm really too worried about.
You see Fumosity and Gaming Printa backed, and we did see Shade down toward the bottom side, which allowed Macho Waffles to get the push in and go ahead and take a back here. If they want. It looks like they are going to stick around. I don't have a lot of mana, but there's an ultimate up top from the Mordekaiser.
Yeah, and this is the kind of ultimate that Budget Pro wants to see. They are close enough to the tower. They just walk it on back. They take, actually, I think, a favorable trade inside of the Death Realm. Nuclear Boy now is going to get jumped on with the Unstoppable Force, and now, this time, I think the Malphite might have the damage to end their life. Great flash forward, an empowered auto attack, and not only is it a victory top for, like, Stevens High School, but now they're able to pivot over and get themselves the Dragon as well.
Excellent play there by Budget Pro. Patient, waiting, nice cheese wheel to bait out the shield. Once that shield went down, he's like, it's go time, baby.
In so many words, I don't think that that's exactly what Malphite sounds like. If that's what, like, a 50-foot tall mountain man sounds like, I would actually wet myself. It would be absolutely terrifying.
Would you like me to try?
To see what Budget Pro sounds like? Sure, go for it, man.
It's go time, baby.
That's a good one, yeah, for sure. They should have gotten you to voice the Malphite LOR card. Although I gotta say that has some adorable interactions with Chip as it currently stands.
Oh man, but hey, Budget Pro. Might not be balling on a budget for too much longer. I mean, he's got a little bit of gold in his pockets now, and certainly on the way to being, I guess, reasonably priced pro.
I feel like reasonably priced is still. I think that's synonymous with budget, though. Now, reasonably priced.
So it's kind of hard, right? Because if something's within your budget,
yeah,
does that mean you're trying to ball on a budget, or maybe you just have a good enough budget? I don't know.
Yeah, fair. I think that Budget Pro is certainly trying to ball on a budget, though, because now that they found this newfound momentum and they have the Aegis completed, I gotta say, this Leeching Leer from Newbie Dare Boy is not going to do enough to get through the defenses of this champion early. The fact that Aegis is becoming so ubiquitous as something to rush means that some of these AP champions top are struggling a bit more than they did in past iterations of this matchup. Now, we do have Pink Nightmares coming through, though, and that is a Cyclone for the Ages. Budget Pro knocked up, looking to just go back in and try to get something. Will fail in doing so. So good, successful game by Southridge there to even up the kill score. But we got Freedom Fighter on a mission coming through, and Pink Nightmares wasn't expecting that. They watched the Mordekaiser die, and now they have to go for the 1v1 duel. And I talked about this before, Yachty. You cannot face down a Warwick with even health. The healing is crazy. It's a double-double for the Wolf.
Yeah, I was so surprised. Pink Nightmares just deciding, hey, you know what? We win these, but no, you do not win these. I've never seen Freedom Fighter lose those. He could have walked over to his turret, but he decided he took the ego fight, and Sun Wukong falling there.
I will say, Southridge still have the hope in Apple Cuckoo to make this game work. They're staying even in gold. In fact, they've just jumped ahead because of the cold cash out. And that was prime time for Lake Stevens to try to make a move on the bot side while Fumosity was up on the Noon Quiver. And we were still waiting to see Apple Cuckoo manage to build some more of their components. But now it's Gnasher's Tooth actually done. So we're going to have double AP threats on Southridge's side. That's going to put a little bit more pressure, I think, on Kato Shade there with the Yone to do a whole lot during team fights. So we don't just see MR stacking, but I mean, this is now the time for Southridge to strike right back, and so far they're going to start it with a play on the top. Budget Pro a little bit too far forward, just going to waddle away through the river and get to safety, but that huge chunk of damage down means that the Malphite's going to have to go for another reset.
Yeah, they couldn't burn his ult either, but they're just kind of lying in wait. They know that Pink Nightmares wants to make something happen, and you did mention, Apple Cuckoo has been able to just chill out down here, farm up, proc that cull, but while all this is happening, Freedom Fighter 3-0. You can see he's got a lot of components. Going to be a very dangerous Warwick coming up. And if there's anything that an AD carry, hey, it's a Warwick.
And we're getting cooldown boots before we see a mythic completed, which does mean that Southridge is still relatively comfortable to have presence on the map. They know that the Warwick has not power spike quite yet, and it makes some of these ganks a little bit more dangerous. I think that Southridge have found themselves considerable breathing room. Maybe they could use the priority that they forged through the top side via Newbie Dare Boy to get themselves first Rift Herald.
And it looks like they're going to at least try for it. I like the pressure that they're putting together. Shadow Shade, it's been a little push and pull there, but if they can go and they can really take control of the mid lane, they could make this play happen. But Newbie Dare Boy is called out.
No flash available. Wukong has to come in with a Hero Cyclone to try to make this play work, but the Mordekaiser has been whittled low. Budget Pro trying to heal up. Freedom Fighter a little bit better at doing so, though, and so it will be a 1-for-2. The Malphite dies yet again, but now Kato Shade wants to have their chance at a 2v1. They weren't expecting the Vex ult, though, and that's another one cleaned up by Lake Stevens. Southridge High School just making some dicey decisions around the Warwick, and they get punished for doing so.
They're fighting around the strongest member on the other team. I just don't understand that. Lake Stevens is just so far ahead now with this war being 5-0-1, has so much gold to spend. We're going to get plates in the mid lane. They are going to lose at least 2 plates in the bottom side here, but they're fighting away from Apple Cuckoo. Apple Cuckoo doesn't have the opportunity to get strong. He's going to roll up, in 6 minutes and get demolished.
And the lane swap does mean that Lake Stevens High School is going to also get quite a bit of gold down onto Fumosity, just hammering away at the mid lane turret before the plates fall. Obviously, Southridge does manage to trade back with Apple Cuckoo, but when that rotation is a net neutral for both of these teams, you have to just look at what's going on topside. And Lake Stevens is so far ahead via the Warwick that right now, no matter how good of a player you are, I think that Apple Cuckoo has to be quaking inside of those tier 1 boots because they have to deal with such a fed champion in the jungle.
Yeah, and now Macho Waffles has a kill, has the Rift Herald in their pocket, has their mythic. Let's not discount this Vex. This Vex is now very strong against squishy champions like this Varus. And you see a little bit of a tussle around the dragon. It looks like everybody's lined up, ready to try to take it, as we're seeing some fighting in the top lane, fighting everywhere.
We are seeing, for the time being, Southridge just able to mob up onto the dragon. They will grab it. They will split the counts. We got a Hextech Soul on the horizon, though, Yanni. So that excites me. I love what the gates bring to the table, especially when you have some of these less experienced players jamming, because occasionally you'll get those crazy vision plays where someone's just sitting in bush and they teleport right on in there.
Yep, and then all of a sudden they just get blown up. They take the gate and they're like, why is there 3 people surrounding me? What happened? You came to the wrong neighborhood, my friend. That's exactly what happened. Could be the worst thing possible here for the side of Southridge is that Apple Cuckoo has built up a shutdown without picking up a kill, just through sheer power of will when it comes to CS, which is honestly very impressive. CSing about 10 CS a minute is no small feat. They have not been pressured too much, and Fumosity, while behind, about 20, has been keeping up okay.
And you have to look at Apple Cuckoo as the main source of gold that is keeping Southridge High School relevant in this game. The Newbie Dear Boy has also picked up their fair share of kills. They've also just died 4 times. They almost grabbed the 3rd kill, actually, versus Budget Pro up top side of the map. But unfortunately, not enough time in the Death Realm, and the Unstoppable Force was available for the Malphite to escape at the last moment.
It's really important for Newbie Dear Boy to build out a lead here. Budget Pro's been doing a pretty good job of not dying in 1v1s outside. I mean, even the first one wasn't a 1v1. So that's really big. And while they are kind of seeding some minions here, they're going to be down about 30 very soon, which is pretty rough. It's all about limiting what Newbie Dear Boy can get, right? Limit the big carries and let your Warwick and your Vex.
All right, we're seeing Apple Cuckoo pushing pretty deep into their build at this point in time. They have the Lost Chapter completed, but let's focus mid real quick. That is a Rift Herald drop. That is the tier 1 taken, but now the Varus is starting to cook. They've gotten themselves a kill off of an overextension by Macho Waffles. We could see whether or not Red Squad can convert that into even more.
If they can't convert it into even more, it's really worth there for Macho Waffles. That's first turret gold. That is not insignificant, right? And now they've got their Hextech Alternator. They're power spiking right now. And yes, the kill going to Apple Cuckoo, not so hot, but you can see he's going the full AP build, right? So, if you're a lower health target, you should be okay for now. But these high health targets, they get tagged up, a couple of auto attacks, and then an empowered Q. All of a sudden, you are missing a lot of your HP.
And I'm a little bit confused about some of the itemization choices by Lake Stevens because we're seeing the AP Varus. Budget Pro decided to go for Ninja Tabbies, aka plated skill caps, when they probably just had to go for MR on that build path, or at the very least, they need to prioritize a huge MR item for their second choice here, so they can not only deal with Apple Cuckoo, but also push back against Newbie Dear Boy, who I would say, in balance with one another, are definitely the strongest members of Southridge right now.
Yeah, I don't necessarily hate it. Human could be in a little bit of trouble here.
Oh my gosh, Freedom Fighter just throwing themselves straight through the chains of corruption. Buman is able to go golden though. However, Pink Nightmares has been slaying on the back end of this fight. Newbie Darboy is coming in, and now maybe Lake Stevens has overextended. Fumosity dancing with the green-white, trying to do all that they can, but they are slammed down by the Mordekaiser, and Macho Waffles has nowhere to go. They're dueling with two. The teleport finally coming out from Budget Pro, and they immediately ult, but it may be too little too late. The Soda can't do the damage, and now the Mountain Man is caught out in a 2v1. Kato Shade is going to fall, but it's a 1v1 duel that Newbie Derboy has taken so many times in this game so far, and they know they are going to win this. They chase off the Malphite.
Crazy fight there. It ends up going 4-for-4, but you can feel Southridge has gotten their pulse. They've gotten into the game here. Yep. There were a couple of big shutdowns that they were able to collect. That Warwick, getting taken down. That's a lot of gold going over. And now you can see multiple mythics coming out for this next fights.
Lake Stevens is in a position where they have to recognize the power of Southridge. When you look at the kill score prior to that fight especially, it didn't seem like Southridge really had any things, but they were bared right there. And now with Blue Squad only very slightly behind, I think that this game in an even state could be one that favors the experience that Apple Cuckoo brings to the table. Yanni, when we were looking at their solo queue profile, I was kind of remarking that, their KDA, their stuff didn't really seem to show that they have a 60% win rate in Diamond. A lot of it comes from their power as a shot caller, although that being said, you can only do so much versus 4 Blue Squad members. They're completely caught out there by the Vex Ultimate. Game and Printa is actually going to get a kill for themselves as well versus their fellow support. And for as much as Southridge was powering up right there, all of a sudden, Lake Stevens, they're going to grab themselves another dragon.
Your prowess as a shot caller means nothing when everybody surrounds you and nobody is around to help. It's just the life that Apple Cuckoo has chosen as an AD carry player. Fumosity getting much more protection, although in that last fight he did get ulted, so he just pretty much instantly died. We could see it happen here as Newbie Dear Boy wants to find a way in.
Warwick is still preoccupied with getting themselves the dragon, so for the time being, it's Fumosity in the literal 1v1 as they're stuck in the death realm. And look at the follow-up as they emerge from Brazil. Southridge is trying to ult in. They use the Cyclone. They also use Kato Shade's ult, but this Vex is a powerhouse, and now Freedom Fighter has rotated in just in time to see their mid laner get a triple kill. Apple Cuckoo is back up, but Yanni, Lake Stevens now have their sights set on the Baron Nashor.
They expended everything on Fumosity and were unable to pick him up, but Apple Cuckoo trying to play hero.
Oh, so much damage. They tore through Budget Pro like they're made out of butter. And now with a death wish, they're going to push into the river. They're looking for an angle, but they get hit immediately by the ult from Freedom Fighter. I think they thought that must have been down because they just didn't respect the spacing. Lake Stevens is able to follow up beautifully, and now, this is a pretty clean Baron.
I didn't see a Black Shield come out there. Maybe I missed it. It was used
early.
It was used very early in that fight, which means a Freedom Fighter ready to hop on and go to town. Apple Cuckoo falling once again. And in the blink of an eye here in Yarko, this game has been blown wide open by Lake Stevens.
I have my grievances with the fact that Southridge for much of the season has had to kind of play hero ball, focusing everything on Apple Cuckoo to get themselves the victory. I like the fact that they tried to evolve here. They tried to split the map, go for a fight even without the Varus on the top side, thinking that maybe, all that they've learned throughout the WSSEA season can come back to benefit them. But I'll be 100% honest here, Yanni. It still feels like, unfortunately, Apple Cuckoo has to shoulder so much of the burden of this team right now, and Lake Stevens High School capitalized off of that. Everybody was wiped. Apple Cuckoo had to go for the hero play. Buman, unfortunately, as you said, uses that Black Shield a little bit too early, and now there's no protection. You are but an AD carry. Who cares about the shot calling prowess you have? Who cares about your rank at the end of the day? You got to work on top of you, suppressing everything that you can do.
Yeah, Atlas Cuckoo over here trying to just hold up the earth and is struggling. The knees are buckling, and, it doesn't matter how talented you are. Sometimes it doesn't even matter the champion that you're playing. When you're staring down these members that are so strong right now, there's not too much you could do. And, I was thinking about this in the draft. I didn't vocalize it, but I wanted to see Apple Cuckoo on something a little bit more aggressive here. I wanted to see them on even if it's not as played as much anymore. Give me like Samira or something like that.
Yep.
Somebody who is not afraid to get into the middle and mix it up. But they went with the Varus and tried to make it down from long range, and it just hasn't been coming together.
And Southridge reserved their counter pick for the Morgana. They could have gone for a huge engager like a Rel, could have comboed that with the Samira quite nicely. Now Kato Shade is getting picked in the mid lane, top side of the map. The tier 1 is gone. Newbie Dear Boy might be in trouble, but they are looking for a fadeaway kill. Macho Waffles is going to get bonked and sent back towards the tower. And actually, Budget Pro can't get that last little bit of damage down onto the Mordekaiser with Pink Nightmares covering them. Game and Prince are too far forward now. The Monkey Man's right on top of them, but nobody expects Freedom Fighter to just walk through the top side of the map, and now that is the Mordekaiser gone. The Wukong is soon to follow. Fumosity also rotating in, and you have to marvel at the shot calling from Lake Stevens. I, have been casting this game pretty zoomed in on the camera, so I haven't really been able to look at the map movements all that much, Yanni, but they're surprising me, man. They're coming through left, right, and center, making sure that if one person dies, they're taking the team back as a response.
Well, Apple Cuckoo dropping that ult.
Yeah, there we go. Chains of Corruption utilized, and while, Fumosity has been half health, look at the sustain that the Stone is bringing to the table. Now the tier 2 isn't there, and therefore Red Squad just has to respect everything that Lake Stevens has available to them. Budget Pro doesn't have Unstoppable Force up just yet, so they can't go for the big engage, but the amount of safety that Lake Stevens is now provided via the tankiness of the Malphite, via the healing of Game and Printa, makes it such an awkward game for Southridge.
Yeah, and you were talking about the rotations, and think about the composition for a second, Yarko. It's actually brilliant, right? Vex can go from very far away. Budget Pro can ult over walls. Freedom Fighter as well, able to leap large distances. It's really no surprise after thinking about it that way that this team is able to get around wherever the heck they want to go. They're centering things around Fumosity and Gaming Printer. Where they go, the rest of the squad follows.
And we talk a little bit about how this is a very unique league in that it's people from all different elos and walks of life jamming with one another, which is wonderful to see, but it does mean that some of these champions are just kind of a cut above in terms of their utility, especially those with really long range engage, because sometimes people just don't respect the spacing, as we see Game and Prince not respecting the power of Apple Cuckoo. Budget Pro immediately throws their whole body at them, and they will go down for it, and now with the re-engage, Lake Stevens has stabilized in this fight. Game and Prince actually able to come back in. Once again, walks up too close to Newbie Dare Boy, though, and with that, Southridge land a killing blow onto the support. It's a double-double, but not much has been done about these 3 remaining Blue Squad members. Lake Stevens High School, once again, coming out victorious in a fight.
I'm going to teach you something here, Nyarko, and you're going to hate me for saying it. That's why they call it red, white, don't fight, my friend. Fumosity comes out full HP.
It's ridiculous how much Severum is able to do to keep the Aphelios topped up. And what that means is that you're really pushing back against the value of Apple Cuckoo on the Varus going full AP, right? Because if you can survive the initial burst, then there's no real way to do sustained damage against a champion that just heals for everything. Look at this, the tower torn down in an instant. Fumosity does have to walk past this slowing field, but I don't know if Apple Cuckoo can actually land the killing blow. Budget Pro, on the other hand, is in a little bit of trouble, hit by Kato Shade's ultimate, but with the Dark Binding going wide, I mean, the Malphite could just tank this all and walk away to safety. In fact, they go for the re-engage. Freedom Fighter's here to clean up and ensure that the Morgana will be sent packing back to the fountain. And now with the 10,000 gold lead on the table, I'm kind of sad to say it, but I do think Southridge have lost their last chance at making a mark in this game.
And after all that chase down that Apple Cuckoo had on Fumosity, Apple Cuckoo dies. Fumosity didn't even have to back in his full HP.
Oh, it's heartbreaking for sure. Lake Stevens looking to push in, but you also have to celebrate what Blue Squad has accomplished here. They are well set up to go undefeated during the regular WSSEA season, Yanni, and that is not something I was expecting out of the Vikings. From week 1, we were doubting them, but they show that they should not be discounted.
Their team play is fantastic. We see everybody communicating, right? That's the reason why that Malphite was able to turn around there. Sure, it was only on the Morgana, but was backed up by Freedom Fighter. And you're not going to take that fight if you think it's just going to be a 1v1.
Not at all. And now Budget Pro is once again leading that point man charge in, and they actually managed to take the ultimate away from Apple Cuckoo in doing so. Great dodge, great fancy feet there. Morgana just wants some vision, but they have no backup, and Macho Waffles is doing ridiculous amounts of damage.
Yeah, that's them Kodiak cakes right there. But Death Realm's out.
Macho Waffles is the target of Newbie Dare Boy. And this is the value of Mordekaiser. Even from behind, as long as you're individually strong, you can often get a lot of damage down. But unfortunately, with the topography being like it was there in the Death Realm, Macho Waffles was able to kind of hide around the far side of the red buff pit. And Newbie Dare Boy had to make the long, arduous journey around the crest of Africa, as it were. And during that time, they lost a lot of their Death Realm. And then everybody was able to follow up from Lake Stevens. Now, with the Mordekaiser dead, Human also just now respawning, it's going to be another Baron Nashor over to Blue Squad.
Yeah, and they're up 12.5K in Yarko. Like, this game, I think it's in its death throes, honestly. There's just not too much that you can think of that Southridge can really come back from here. Even if they get a perfect fight, it's just not going to work out for them, man. I don't know what they need, but they need a miracle. They need to drag this game out for everybody to be at full build and somehow not lose. And that's not going to happen for probably 20 more minutes.
And, you know, out of all the teams in WSSEA that you would expect to throw, Lake Stevens High School is the one furthest down on that list because of the immaculate communication we've been seeing from them. This level of interplay between these champions is something that I was not expecting whatsoever, but Lake Stevens have fully powered up, and they're deserving of the lead that they have right now, and they're probably deserving of going undefeated. Yes, this is Malphite a little bit caught out, but there's more pressure now through the bot side of the map. You gotta look at Fumosity going for the split push, and they still can't kill Budget Bro. He just ults away to safety. He also has to flash, but Macho Waffles is going to cover their escape path with a big fear.
And if somebody died there, it would have been horrific. That's the ultimate tilter, right? When you go after somebody, you throw everything you got at them, you throw your best punch, and they shrug it off and walk away. You're going to lose a tower in the bottom side. That's just so defeating, so deflating if you're Southridge. And I don't know if they can mentally come back from that.
I'm going to be real, Yanni. Is being 13,000 gold down not the ultimate tilter? Because that's what we're currently looking at right now for Southridge.
It is kind of tilting, right? But, you know, when you're able to go out and get a kill, right? You go, all right, we got one. We just got to keep doing that a lot. And you go out and you just cannot close out on that kill. It feels bad, man. And, you know, this Varus build really struggling against Baron, by the way. We didn't really talk about that much. That cube did not do a whole lot of damage. You know, these Baroned up minions take so much less magic damage. And now we're taking a look at Aphelios on 4 items here. And all it's going to take is one more fight. And it looks like they're going to wait around for this dragon to get sold. But, you know, you're waiting for one more fight. And Lake Stevens, they have no shortage of engagement. They can start that whenever they want.
And this is going to be a backbreaking soul. If this game wasn't already over enough, Lake Stevens will just be able to static shiv through people. And I mean, the chunks, the damage that's already being done with singular abilities from these champions like the Vex means that Southridge already cannot hold down the fort. In fact, we may not actually see a soul take, Yanni. I think they're just looking to end the game.
It might be time here. They're all hovering around. It looks like the jungler's going to go away, so they are going to go take the soul. Way to go, you caster curse them.
I don't even know if it's a caster curse. I'm just trying to speculate on the state of the game. I feel like caster cursing has to lead to specifically detrimental things for a team. Like Stevens is just playing prudently, which isn't much of a curse, you know. If the curse is prudence, then I think that, frankly, that is a blessing to take.
I mean, I don't know. It might be a little detrimental for Lake Stevens.
All right. Well, Southridge is trying to walk in, trying to contest this soul. Now, with the fight being split and Game and Printa absorbing the pressure of the Mordekaiser, it allows for Fumosity to tear through the rest of the team. 3 members of Southridge are now dead, and yet still, Blue Squad is just looking to go grab themselves soul rather than ending the game. Macho Waffles a little bit split from the rest of the team as they are walking into the base, but finally, there will be follow-up. Malphite decided to teleport bot for some reason, but, you know, it's just a power play at the end of the day. And whether or not you have the Mountain Man here, the game looks about over. Southridge High School put up a valiant fight, had some creative builds, some creative strategies, but Lake Stevens High School are well and clearly the kings of WSSEA.
Fumosity capping it off. Kill number 10. Take down that Nexus. Don't let anybody die. No, don't let Warwick die. You let Warwick die. You let him down.
Oh, Southridge will get something on the back end of that, you know. A little bit of a concession made by Lake Stevens High School to say, hey, You know, guys, we're going to play again. We're going to have fun the next time as well, because our bracket is getting set up, Yanni, and that means that we got more competition ahead of us, even though for tonight, Lake Stevens emerged victorious.
Yeah, and Lake Stevens, they complete the perfect season, and we doubted them early, as you talked about, but their team play has just shown to be on another level. They seem to understand how to play League of Legends as a cohesive unit better than anybody else in this league.
It really is kind of the tale of two very different styles that brought these teams to the top of the standings. Obviously, no attacks against any single player on Lake Stevens' side, as they all are very competent. But Southridge put all of their eggs into the basket of Apple Cuckoo throughout the season. Very many times it carried them to glory, but at the end of the day, 5-2 is the record that you have to look at if you're playing that kind of hero ball. And meanwhile, Lake Stevens High School, working as a cohesive group, are able to shore up their weaknesses, build upon their strengths, and come out undefeated.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, 5-2 ain't bad for playing hero ball.
Nope, not at all.
Like, I'll be honest with you. It's really difficult to do. You see professional teams try to do it in league and other esports and other traditional sports, and it just doesn't work sometimes, and so credit to them for a very solid season.
No, definitely the case. And honestly, when you look at Southridge's composition, when you look at the performance in this game, it isn't necessarily that Apple Cuckoo is the only player that is able to push back against Lake Stevens. It was actually Newbie Dare Boy on that Mordekaiser with a very standout performance in the 1v1 that managed to do the most damage for that team. Apple Cuckoo was just unfortunately relegated to a position where they were never able to get going, because they really met their match in the form of Fumosity and Game Printa.
Yeah, they weren't able to generate any pressure, which meant that Freedom Fighter was just free to go on the top side. He was free to fight. It's in the name. And, being able to set Newbie Dare Boy behind early, obviously they had a very solid laning phase, but it could have been so much worse. And if that Mordekaiser gets out of control, it becomes problematic. But we saw at the end of the game that Mordekaiser's in a 1v1 with Sona, and Sona doesn't even lose half of her health.
Yeah, it's really tough. We identified these weaknesses from Lake Stevens, and while it feels like Southridge operated with the knowledge of what they needed to do, the execution unfortunately wasn't there. But the fact that the knowledge was there to begin with, Yanni, gives me confidence that they're still going to be making a mark here in the upcoming playoffs. We have the championship on the 20th of this month coming through in May, and so that's very, very close. And I'm super excited to be back on the Rift once again with
that's
you
11 days
coming through in the future. Yeah, counting down 11 days from now. We got some wild stuff ahead of us, but for now, I think it is time that we got to close out once again.